Hi, partners. Hey, thank you for clicking that link and joining me here at the Wilshire Police Station. This is the first time I've come to see the cadets, I think, in the 2 weeks in a row. Officer Aoki had those two questions put on the board. When are we going to start talking about school shootings? What can we do to stop any mass massacres? I have never seen any group so excited. So you'd think, as I said before, that you were looking at a town hall meeting of adults. These young people, it's their lives that are at stake. They are taking control. Well, for the last 14 weeks, my researcher and writer, Dennis Daly, has been sending me special people that were the early Americans. We call them founding fathers because most of them were men, but then we had some founding mothers too. You remember the lady who was always showing up somewhere with food, just good thanks of saying hello to the soldiers and doing anything she possibly could and bringing water. They called her Molly Pitcher because she was bringing water to the troops. A lot of Molly Pitchers, that was just a stage name because hundreds of ladies were helping. Just like in my era, Rosie the Riveter, we all knew them. Oh, there's so many great people. And Dennis sent me one about the lady who waved the flag. I was really particularly interested in this story because it concerns a lady who's 94, my age, that did this certain special deed, and it was so good. So now let's move forward, and we'll go to this one for today, the lady who waved the flag. This is a story that I said I love because it talks about the flag. And it's so important because it was a senior citizen, my age. And maybe more importantly, this was the time when it was so important for people to see who was on whose side. What? Well, I explained that. We're going to go back now to the 1800s. Abraham Lincoln was trying to keep the Union together, and things weren't going well. The news from the battlefront was not good at all. Man, the rebel forces had lost about 10,000 people, and the Union soldiers had lost at least 13,000. So, Jimmy, what about this lady that you said you wanted to talk about that's your age? Okay, I'm glad you asked that. It's 1862. There was a young officer named U.S. Grant who was making a name for himself on the Western Front. Eventually, he took over the entire Union Army and brought it to victory. Now, the one who was in charge of the rebel forces was perhaps the greatest general of all times, Robert E. Lee. He was making hit-and-run trips north of the Mason-Dixon line. Now, we're going to go, there's one guy that he had in charge of his troop at this point in Frederick, Maryland. And that's where our scene is going to be taking place, and just kind of stay right here at Frederick, Maryland. Partners, you need to know this. Frederick, Maryland is today only an hour's drive from the nation's capital. Now, back then, reports from the Union observers were coming back to Washington. Lincoln was worried. He knew he had strong defenses there at the capital, but what if the army turned south and went back to Washington, D.C.? Would it be safe? So at one point, Stonewall Jackson decided he would march through Frederick to show us force, like here's what we're doing here. And also it might bring out some people who were in favor of his army too, because you see, Maryland was really a northern state, and yet it was a slave state. And he was trying to think that maybe he could get some morale boosters by having soldiers march through that. Well, when they approached the corner of Patrick and Center Street, they got a shock, because there at the corner, just over the bridge that crossed Carroll Creek, they saw the Stars and Stripes flying from a second-story window. Now, whoever lived in that house was certainly no fan of the Confederate Army. Suddenly, a rebel soldier decided he was going to shoot that flag, and he let it go. The musket ball shattered the pole. But what happened next was immortalized a year later by a poem of John Greenleaf Whittier. I'm going to read it to you. Here's the way it goes. A bullet hit the flagstaff. Old Glory fell. An old woman grabbed it. She began to yell. Shoot if you must this old gray head, but spare your country's flag, she said. A shade of sadness, a blush of shame, over the faces of the rebels came. The rebel general was then soon heard, inspired by the woman's deed and word. Whoever touches a hair of yon gray head dies like a dog. March on, he said. Yep. The commander told the soldiers to march on and touch not a hair on yon head, yon gray head. Today, in Frederick, Maryland, her home is the National Shrine. There are yearly parades in Frederick, and even a motorcycle race that is 100 years old is in her honor. On the edge of town, there's even a candy store that bears her name. Jimmy, who are you talking about? Barbara Fritchie, F-R-I-T-C-H-I-E. Barbara Fritchie. I'm saying that because, as I told you a while ago, she was 94 years old when she climbed out on that windowsill to protect the American flag. Sadly, she died a few months later. Oh, one other thing. It's likely that Barbara Fritchie got her love of liberty for a very simple reason. You see, she was 10 years old when the Declaration of Independence was announced. She was in high school during the Revolutionary War. She had seen other troops march through her town. She had seen the flag of England when she was a little girl. She knew the value of liberty. Barbara Fritchie, F-R-I-T-C-H-I-E. Okay, you know the drill. Hey, cadets, stand by. I'm going to come be right with you as soon as this video ends. I want my hugs, and we'll take pictures. I see somebody with cameras. We'll take pictures. I like that. It's always fun. Okay, now the rest of you watching this video, as soon as it's over, go up there and click that red X. It's the farthest over the right. And it'll take you right back to my report page, and you can read the rest of what happens today. Hey, I love you. Being able to talk to you like this on video is something extra special. I told you that Dennis is working on something special for me. It's not here yet, but it will be soon, and when it is, I'll announce it to you. In the meantime, just remember, I love you. Thanks for sending me your reports. Thanks for all the comments you make about the videos and about what we're doing in schools. Thank you for being my partners and helping me with my little foundation seen below. You know I love you. Go get 'em, Tigers!